have you on.
Okay.
All right. We are going live. Good morning, everyone. I'm Allie Burns from Picks and Parleys, and this is a special edition of our show, Morning Wood. Today, I've got Ross Benjamin. How's it going, Ross?
Hey, it's going good. I just don't know what to do with myself. There's no responsibilities in the morning for myself the next, yesterday, today, and Wednesday and Thursday. And as you well know, we all need to decompress right now a bit.
Yes, yes, we do. It's a welcome break. It's a
Yes, it
welcome
is.
break.
Yep.
And there's the why I wanted to have you on. So anyone who doesn't know who Ross Benjamin is, he's one of our expert handicappers over at picksandparlays.net. And I brought him on the show just for more of a Q&A session because I know, being a baseball bettor, that before the AllStar break and after the AllStar break are two different time periods in baseball. So I just kind of wanted to have you on and get your opinion about what we should look out for after the All-Star break. What should we be paying attention to in baseball right now?
Well, I think what I like to do is look back on the first half and see what teams overachieved and if they can sustain. Like, for example, Ellie, I would look at a team like the Seattle Mariners. I think right now, as we speak, and I think you brought this up on one of your prior shows, that Seattle right now is the biggest moneymaker in baseball. You look at how they're getting things done and ask yourself, is this sustainable? And I don't think it is. So that's going to be a team I'm looking to fade in the second half, especially if they're a favorite. And again, it all depends on pitching matchups, et cetera, et cetera. And you can go on the other side of the coin. Now, just prior to the All-Star break, I would have told you the Atlanta Braves are one team that I am definitely going to want to bet on, but then they lose Ronald Acuna to that season-ending injury, which is terrible. So you want to find teams that you think have overachieved so far and made bettors a lot of money, because what's going to happen going forward is bettors fall in love with teams that have made them money over the first half and don't make adjustments along the way, and you'll get some favorable lines if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I know the Tigers first five has been a really popular bet. Everyone's loving them some Tigers first five. I have been definitely, like you mentioned, one of those Mariners people, but I don't like the Mariners as favorites. I really like to have them as home dogs, which I catch them at a lot. How does the Giants, the Dodgers, the Padres, we're all kind of rocking and rolling in that part of their division. Do you look to play teams that are fighting for a spot? Is that something you look for, or is it something you stay away from?
Well, certainly. I mean, here's the thing: if you're looking at teams that are fighting for a spot against teams that are out of it, for lack of a better phrase, or don't have any realistic chance other than mathematically to get a postseason berth, you're probably looking at big chalks. So I'm not too much of a proponent on that, Ellie, because just because a team is supposed to win, it's not that easy, as you well know over the years. So, it's a good point, but I'd be real careful there in that regard. I'd be more inclined to look at, okay, out of those three teams, which one may be a team that's not sustainable in terms of their record. You would think that the San Francisco Giants right now, the way they've played over the first half, it certainly surprised a lot of people. I'm sure you feel the same way. I don't know if that's going to be sustainable, but yet I still think they're good enough to be, at minimum, a wild card team, because they hit and they also pitch well. So the LA Dodgers, to me, they're starting to come on. They got off to that slow start. They're always dangerous. And San Diego, they're sort of frustrating. If you're a Padres fan, it's been feast or famine with them. I know that they're 13, 14 games over 500, if I'm not mistaken. But again, I just think that's a team that's so much capable of more going forward.
I was very excited about the Padres at the beginning of the season with Darvish and then Snell coming on, and Snell's kind of been more of a fade to me than he is a play, especially because he's got that big name and you're not getting the proper price on him. And then with Tatis Jr. And I mean, it seems like the Padres have all the parts, and it's like, when is it going to click for you guys? Come on, you're there, guys.
Yeah, I mean, their bullpen's been great all year, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
The bullpen's been great all year. And as far as Blake Snell goes, if you look at his home and away dichotomies, he's Cy Young at home and absolutely brutal on the road, which is hard to figure because he hasn't shown those signs over the course of his career, especially in recent years. So something to keep an eye on going forward. I just don't think that he's going to continue to pitch that bad on the road than he has in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, he's a sharp guy. We saw him in the World Series last year. Like, come on, bro, you could do this. So as far as pitchers, what is there anything that changes in pitching from before the break and after it? I mean, is it better pitching, or do we start seeing some fatigue set in?
Well, that's a good question, and one it's not an exact science in my mind. So you have to almost just follow along, for lack of a better phrase, Ellie. And what I mean by that is you'll start to see guys signs of fatigue. What I like to do too, I like to look at their career history in certain months. And I know that sounds a little too specific, but hear me out on this, okay? You see a pitcher, there's a lot of pitchers out there. If you see them in the month of April, May, and June, their numbers are drastically different than in the last 3 months of the year. And a lot of that's consistent, whether it be they start slow and end terrifically, or they begin really good and have a history of fading down the stretch. So those numbers can be accessed throughout the internet. I like to take a look at that. And I think that's more of an indication rather than trying to guess every day, because now you're looking at, especially veteran pitchers, guys who've been around 4 years or more, they have a big sample size in that regard. So it's something, just a tip to take a look at.
Absolutely. I dig that. And people in the chat, feel free to ask Ross any questions that you may have. Kind of, not a lot to bet on today, but I figured let's have a guest on, answer some questions to help us make money in the second half of this baseball season. So I have always been really stat driven. I did statistics for basketball and also for the Aviators. So I'm a stat driven person, but this season, I've been so busy hosting all the shows that I haven't had time to do my own numbers like I usually do. And I've been following trends a lot more. Are you a big trends guy?
Yes and no. I like to look at in-season trends and possibly what's happened over the last couple seasons. But when you get into the Detroit Tigers are 61 and 170 since 1998 when this happens or that happens. I'm not a true believer of that. I'm not in any sport, as a matter of fact, but recent team trends, I put a lot more stock in. I actually put stock in and don't put any stock in trends that last a long time kind of thing.
That always makes me nuts in college football when it's like over the last 48 games, it's like, how many, those aren't even the same guys. Like those guys are kids now from those 48 games ago. It doesn't make sense to me, but it is sometimes crazy how those trends still keep continuing.
Yeah. And sometimes you got to decipher, Ellie, and look at a trend and say, is this coincidental? You know what I mean? Is it coincidence or is there some substance to it? You mentioned that's a good point with the college football. Remember, 20 years ago, kids, for the most part, were staying in school 4 years. Now the first chance they get the bolt, they leave. Now, I'll tell you what I do keep an eye on in college football. I know we're getting a little off track here because we're talking about baseball, but I'll take a look at coaching trends. Because I'm a thorough believer that teams take on the personality of their coach. Now, if Oklahoma is 63-10 against the spread as a home favorite of between 10 and 19 points, and it's under the same coaching staff, that's one thing. Okay, I'll take that a lot more serious than if they've had 4 or 5 coaching changes within the parameters of that trend. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. Miss Chelsea Messenger popped in.
Chelsea.
Hi, Chelsea. Long time no see. Thanks for saying hi. Yeah, definitely. And that's the funny thing too, or not funny thing, but part of it for me with coaching is that once you really get to know in college basketball is where I use it from. You
Yeah.
might coach at Arkansas now, but I know that well, that would be Eric
I know
Musselman
what you're saying.
came from
So
Reno.
wherever else that coach goes,
Right.
there
If you
could be a
come from Marquette
consistency
and
in
the
that
Big
trend.
East,
Yes.
you've
Yes.
got a Big East style of basketball where you're going to be more defensive minded and
Yep.
slower paced. Whereas,
I
so
agree.
I really believe in following your coach. That's a
That
really good tip.
that's a great observation and one that I failed to touch upon. But yes, I do look at that as well. NFL too. I mean, um, recent team trends, yes, but there's so much overhaul in head coaching jobs in the NFL. Teams get a little impatient these days. They're looking for a quick fix. If it doesn't happen, they continue to. The coaching carousel continues to happen. But you look at teams like Pittsburgh with Mike Tomlin, who's been around for 16
Yeah.
years. You'll see that on the road they have a tendency to play under the total, especially if you really break it down into the numbers parameter, like between 41 and 48. And again, I'm being hypothetical when I throw those numbers out. I think
Right.
you'll see a trend there under Mike Tomlin, how they tend to play under on the road a lot more than at home.
So that kind of brings us into the next thing. A big part of the second half of baseball season is not just betting baseball, but it's preparing. You got to get prepared for football
Yes.
because this is like the big jam that's about to happen, college and NFL. How do you start to prepare for football season like at this point in the year? Are you a game of the year lines person, or what are you kind of looking at right now
Well,
as a professional?
what I'm looking at right now, and I always say when you start talking about players, when you handicap games, you need to start playing fantasy instead of sports betting, because look, if we know about who's on one side of the ball and the other, who's hurt, what the weather conditions are like, whatever have you, Ellie, it's all factored into the line. We're not, you're never going to put the first thing of order. I always say is think like a bookmaker. If you think like a bookmaker, you'll be one step ahead. There's too many guys out there that probably are watching right now that think, oh, this line is off. The line's never off. Okay. So
They put it that way so you think it's off, so you
yeah,
bet on it and they can move it. And
exactly.
yes, exactly.
Remember, in sports betting, if it looks too good to be true, Ellie, most times than not, it is. So I start to assess rosters. And I know that sounds like a contradiction to what I just said, but I always try to bring myself up to speed because I don't follow the free agency because I'm in the middle of basketball. And I'll assess the rosters and then say, look at team totals. Okay, for example, regular season team totals. People like to bet on those. I use them as a handicapping tool because I want to see who the books think is going to be a good team and who they think is going to underachieve. And then I'll look at schedules, and see if you want to make a prediction early on a team winning a division. Take a look at what their opposition's regular season win totals are. Add them up, and you could basically, the books are telling you the strength of schedule for each team. Does that make sense, or do I need to clarify? Yeah. So, that's what I look at.
I use strength of schedule a lot for college basketball. That's a really important tool for me. You get these teams that are 12-0, but they've played Arkansas Pine Bluff all season long, whereas this team might be 6-6, but they've been playing Gonzaga and the bigger guys. So strength of schedule for anyone at home who doesn't know it is a really important thing to take a look at.
Yes. It's absolutely true, especially when it comes to non-conference play in college basketball.
Detroit Lenny says he had an old guy in a sports book tell him once, never take the line they give you. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty broad statement. You know what I mean? Never take the line they give you. You look at the line, you assess it from there, and more times than not, you'll see line movement and you assess it from there. But just to say, never take the line they give you is, I don't buy that. No. And again, no disrespect, Detroit Lion. I know you're a sharp guy, but whoever told you that, plug your ears the next time he tries to give you any advice.
Plug your ears. If you guys have any questions for Ross Benjamin, drop them on into the comment box. And don't forget to give us a thumbs up. We're doing a little special edition of Morning Wood, just trying to get drop some knowledge on you, get everyone's mind right for what's about to come in the next few months. Yeah, strength of schedule is huge in college football. It definitely is. So if you had one main tip to give us for the post AllStar break season, I want to say the postseason, but
Yes,
after the AllStar break, this next month or so coming up, what would you say that we should focus on the most in betting on baseball?
Again, I think I'm going to be redundant here, but I would say coming out of the break, assess who you think has overachieved thus far. Assess who you think who has underachieved thus far in terms of team wise, and then see what happens in the first 2 weeks after the break. And you could pretty much assess, okay, was I on? For example, I said Seattle. Now, if they come out of the break and they go 10-4, maybe this is just their year. You know what I mean? And when I say just their year, I don't mean to suggest they're going to win the World Series. But right. I mean, as far as from a betting perspective, it might be just one of those years, Ellie. It's where everything just falls their way. They stay healthy. You look at their statistics and you say, how the hell's this team got the record they do? But that's what I would look at. As far as one specific thing, no, I don't. I try to broaden the scope is what I'm trying to say.
Do you set your own lines? Like I know some handicappers who they figure out their own lines and then they look at the line and they see if they can find value where it's off. Are you that kind of person? I don't do that.
I worked on the other side of the table for 10 years before I got into the sports handicapping industry publicly. So I have a pretty good assessment of what goes on. And one thing I've learned over the years, I don't know more than the bookmaker in terms of setting a line. So other guys are very good at that, okay? And I'm not saying anybody who has that approach is wrong. I just think you're wasting a lot of time. Your time could be spent a lot more valuably. I respect the odds makers and the line they give me, and then I follow along as far as line movement goes. And like we just said, Ellie, sometimes you'll get a line and you'll look at it and go, wait a minute, why is this team a minus 130 favorite and they're 12 games ahead of the other team in the standings? Well, right there alone raises a red flag, right? It's never that easy. They want you to jump on the better team in terms of standings wise.
That's whenever I see the Dodgers less than a 200, I am like immediately suspicious. Immediately I don't want anything to do with it because it looks like something that's so easy to jump on. Breaking Vegas Sports, this is Daniel Henderson, says, do you feel Vegas or any of the leagues fix sports? I have my personal opinion. I will feel the same way regardless of your answer. I just want to know your take on sports being fixed.
If you want to get my hairs on the back of my neck to raise, this is a particular subject you could discuss with me. Really? On a professional level, there is, in my mind, there's not a chance in the world that occurs. Okay, most people who make these comments are on a streak of bad luck, a streak of bad beats. Just remember the bad beats they've sustained over the years, but not the times that they luckily won games the same way. You could think about this rationally. You got guys that are making multi-millions of dollars a year. What kind of money could you possibly try to bribe them with for them to throw a game and jeopardize their careers? It's ridiculous. And their pensions. It doesn't happen. Get it out of your mind. Now, that's my opinion, and I'm strong. Now, on a college level, if I can, on a college level, there's times where I think it doesn't have to do with Vegas fixes more than you've seen it over the years. It's not really the Las Vegas sports books more than it's the big bookies doing things on an illegal basis that may bribe college athletes. And you got to look at some of these kids come from poor families. They're watching universities make millions of dollars off their name, and we've seen some of that change over the last year. So, yes, they are more prone and vulnerable to those types of situations happening. Now, in the landscape right now, the NCAA would legalize sports betting outside of the state of Nevada and most of the United States right now. Um, the leagues, the NCAA, are super razor sharp in terms of what goes on in that regard. If they see any hint of anything like that going on, it's a lot more scrutinized now than it was 20 years ago, even 10 years ago. So the chances of that happen are remote, but if they do occur, I'm a firm believer it would be at the college level and never at the pro level.
For me, it's not necessarily like fixed in that players or referees are necessarily throwing games. I think lines are set in ways that are funky, that are, I don't know. I don't think it's not fixed. I'm going to say that. I don't think that players are throwing games, but I think that if they wanted to put a microchip in both pylons and a microchip in a football, then we would know every freaking time if that football went across or not.
Right.
You know, like I think there are ways that we could make, just coming from an umpire background where accuracy, if you're not accurate about your calls, now you got an old man screaming in your face about what an idiot you are, you know, that for the sake of accuracy, that there are many times in sports where we have seen a game get blown that should not.
Well, that's if when we're talking about umpires and referees. Now, I got to be careful with this because somebody's going to throw in my face the Tim Donaghy situation.
Right. Yeah,
so that's an isolated incident, and we've had no other incidents. Other than that, though, Ellie, bad calls are going to happen. That's the human element of the game. It's
right. But why can't we reverse that? Why can't we? Oh, sorry, that was a bad call. Let's put it how it's supposed to be. Like I can always send them back. If they go too far, I can always send them back. And
but I hate to say it, but I think eventually we're going to get to that. Everything's going to be done electronically, and there's going to be no human element. And then.
But then how are they going to fix it? No,
exactly. So I'm not a proponent of that. I still think you need the human beings on the field to make it not a robotic type of game. You know what I'm saying? It takes away from the tradition of the games. So we'll see. But
I don't want it to be robotic, but I would like there to be a backup call. Let the humans do it, and then if it comes down to like why can't we review it? Like isn't there some rule like in the last 2 minutes you can't review things? Wouldn't that be like the most important time to review things?
Well,
kind of thing.
You can review it, but it's got to come from upstairs.
Exactly. Why?
Yeah, because
they can't fix it.
Well, you know what? They can, because you got to think that the guys upstairs, if you give them the specific job of saying, if you find the call on the field wasn't conclusive and it needs to be reviewed, you need to stop the game. If that's all their job is, to get things right, and they don't get that right, then you fire them and bring somebody else in. That's my opinion. I think sometimes in sports betting, we tend to get carried away and make things a lot more complicated than they are. And that's one particular instance right there. So I get what you're saying, Ellie, but by the same token, I like the way it's set up right now. I think they protect themselves a lot more.
I think there's a fix, and maybe I always say, like, it's so what if it's fixed, just be on the right side of the fix. Like if it's fixed, it's fixed. There's nothing you can do about it. You just got to figure out how to be on the right side of it. But what about, like, for me, what gets me is the 6.5 points. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? No, he's not. Then the line drops after all this money's, like, to me, there's a song and dance there. I think there needs to be a time where you call it, or like lines, if we don't have pitchers determined, we don't have a line hung. So like, why can you hang these lines with LeBron and then it changes and it, you know what I'm saying? And that's a timing thing. That's a discipline thing, and being professional and waiting till the game starts to make your bet to see who's going to be in it. But a lot of money goes that way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, in our situation, on a lot of the sites I'm on, Picks and Parleys is one of them, and I'm not criticizing Craig because I know he's got a business to run. But when you start putting deadlines on handicappers in this COVID era and in this era in general, and you need to get picks out real early, you leave yourself susceptible to that happening. Now, what I would say to best prevent that is you need to say, okay, this line, if LeBron James is certain to play, what would that line be? Is that accurate? And again, I like to use Sagarin ratings for something like that. You know what I mean? If I have any kind of doubt that there's, you'll see the line. You could read a line sometimes and say, this is telling me that LeBron, they don't think there's a good chance that LeBron's going to play, but they're protecting themselves by making that line where it is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And, I mean, again, it's not an exact science. So.
Yeah, so Breaking Vegas Sports is saying, I don't believe it's the players. I feel it's the leagues. Like the NFL was sued and they didn't argue the game wasn't fixed. They argued that they had the right to fix their entertainment event. I remember this.
Okay.
I do remember
well,
this.
Give me an example of that. And I'll come on it.
It was, I do remember this. It was like a whole lawsuit. Hold on. I'm going to look that up while.
I think what you're referring to is that New Orleans and the Rams game in the NFC Championship game on what should have been an interference call.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's a human element, but at the same time, I don't believe in that particular instance that pass interference at that time was a reviewable play. I think because of that play, they made pass interference a reviewable play the following season. If I'm not mistaken, Ellie, I won't swear to it.
No, I mean, but that's kind of what bugs. I'm not the biggest football person ever. Like I'm college basketball and I'm baseball. I'm not that into football. I have my own reasons for NFL, the way that they treat women, the way that they treated Colin Kaepernick, the way they run their operation is just not really something that I want to get behind, but I love college football. So don't get me wrong there, but something about the NFL just ticks me off. But that's part of it. It's like with all the stupid freaking rules you have in your league, why isn't pass interference a reviewable play? Why isn't everything a reviewable play? For the love of making the game fair and honest and factual, and this is what happened, everything should be reviewable, you know? And the fact that things aren't makes me think it's fishy. You know what I mean?
But how many times have we seen in the NBA, in college basketball, NBA, I should say specifically, where you'll hear the announcers go, it's been 2 minutes. This just slows the momentum of the game down. Now, can you imagine if you made everything reviewable? So there's got to be I know what you're saying, Ellie.
That's a good answer. Good answer.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. We just have to find that happy median, I guess. And sometimes that's a difficult thing to do.
Okay, so both of you. See, I'm just not a football person.
There you go. Detroit Lenny just agreed with me. See, Detroit Lenny, I told you you're a smart guy.
He has his moments.
Yeah.
He has his moments. So betting on the All-Star game. You're not a big All-Star game bettor. We're just getting a few questions in here. Yeah, I'm not an All-Star. I was rocking the home run derby last night, though. That was really fun. I always just kind of bet on the American League, and I like it to go under. You know, that's kind of my standard issue play. So
there's no strategy to betting an All-Star game.
Yeah,
you can talk to me till you're blue in the face and say, I do this every year and it works. And I'm going to tell you, you're full of baloney. You've just been lucky. Okay. But in terms of breaking down an All-Star game, you don't know what the managers plan on doing as far as what players are going to play for any length of time, who's going to be pitching. I mean, most times it's a 1-inning stint for pitchers. Pitchers who are normal starters are coming in relief cold in the 6th inning. There's no exact science to it. I mean, there's no exact science to sports betting in general, but at least when you have a big sample size during regular season play, there could be a method to your madness. I don't see where the method to your madness comes in All-Star betting.
Yeah, I just like the AL better. So, you know, and I put a couple of to watch the game, and I like it under because they're really good pitchers. And I feel like they're tired from the home run derby, the batters are. And that's just my own, like no handicapping. This is just my own.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you bet the American League because Houston's your favorite team?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah.
Exactly why. Yeah. Because I want to root for the Astros.
And over the last few years, they've had a lot of All-Star representations because they've been so good. So there you go, Ellie.
It makes it fun. It makes it fun.
That's okay.
I want a little
okay.
action on it. I'm not betting my house, so
Yeah.
that's the difference, really. All right, all right. Well, Ross, why don't you tell us what's going on over at the site coming out of the break? And I'd love to have you on again too to ask some more questions. And
I'd love to be on again. I enjoy this format. I really do. I enjoy this type of format, open format. You do a hell of a job. I've watched shows over the last couple of weeks, and I know that Craig knows how lucky he is to have you. And I hope the listeners do as well, because this is a girl who really is passionate about what she's doing. And, if you're not passionate and you're doing something every day, you're going to be unhappy. But you can tell this young lady on the other side of me, look at that smile. Can you tell me she's not passionate and happy? Anyway,
you're making me
coming out of the break, I'm going to be obviously looking at the baseball, making my assessments. You'll get 1 to 3 picks a day. Also, NFL preseason's right around the corner, and anybody who tells you they can't make money on NFL preseason, I'll show you where you can.
You're not doing it right.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then football's right around the corner, folks. So, a lot of exciting things coming up. The Olympics are coming up. Hey, how about USA basketball, Ellie? What's going on with that?
In Nigeria?
Uh-huh.
And Nigeria has like 9 NBA players on it, don't they?
Yeah. Australia beat the United States last night as well. So
I saw that. Holy cow.
And they're pretty filled with Patty Mills and them guys. There's a lot of guys on that team with NBA experience too. The world is really caught up to the United States when it comes to these types, especially when the United States isn't putting their best foot forward. Now, that's not to make like Kevin Durant's a great player, right? So is Damian Lillard, but you're not seeing the dream teams that we've seen of years past. And, and we're also not talking about depth of talent in an individual country. When it comes to depth of talent in a country, nobody compares to the U.S.
Well, Nigeria sure is trying to, but didn't we slaughter them last season? By 80 points, we beat them in the gold. Not last season, but last Olympics or whatever it was. By 80 for the gold.
You also got to look at the fact that some of these guys from the other countries didn't go through these long playoff runs. They didn't. Some of the guys on the U.S. right now, they advanced far in the playoffs the year before. Then they advanced far in the playoffs this year. It was truncated seasons because of COVID. So there's a lot to be involved there. I'm not trying to make mistakes for the U.S. or excuses for the U.S. But I think as the tournament starts, you'll see more cohesiveness, and you'll see the kind of play that the U.S. Is expected to be the top player there.
You guys in the chat, stop it. You got them all riled up.
Oh, yeah.
You did. Well, excellent. So, yeah, definitely let's have you back on, because part of the Morningwood thing, part of our whole vibe is that we're all learning, that we can ask each other questions. We're helping each other out. And I really in the past, I've had Cam Ross and the Twins and Detroit Lenny and different cappers come on and kind of give their 2 cents about some tips and what we should be looking for. But I'd love to have you back on a regular basis so they can prepare questions. Now that Ross is coming on, we'll do it again next week. And then
I'm going to piss you off along the way. But so be it. That's okay. That's the beauty about sports betting. There's different.
Everybody pisses me off, Ross.
Yeah. But just a minute. No, not you in particular. You said the listeners. Look I've been doing this a long time. It doesn't mean everything I say is correct in your mind. And that's the beauty about this kind of forum, is you could exchange ideas, and there might be some idea you exchange with me or Ellie says to me that never came to my mind, and I'm not one of those guys that thinks he knows it all, but I do pretty good for myself. So I think most times than not, my opinions are going to have some, pretty good thought process to them. Okay. I'm just not talking off the cuff and saying this happened yesterday. And no, so I love this type of forum. Thank you for having me on, Ellie. Yeah,
no problem. It's important. It took me, especially being a female, it took me a very long time to hit on the person that I could ask questions to, to understand why lines are moving the way that they are. What does a minus 250 mean? Oh, that's $250 I have to minus to win 100. Simple stuff like that. A lot of us take it for granted, but a lot of people are just kind of looking for that person to ask stupid questions to, and you don't want to feel like an idiot. So it took me a long time to hit on my guru, and I just kind of want to help everyone else find their own gurus, kind of thing.
There's no such thing as a stupid question, especially in sports betting,
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, I might not give you the answer that you want to hear, and I'm not referring to you, Ellie, more so than the people listening. So, don't hesitate. Ask whatever you want to ask, and we could have some back and forth. It makes it fun, makes everybody think, and we could all learn from each other.
Yeah, that's just it. We all learn from each other. That's my favorite thing about Picks and Parlays is we really are familial. We're very communal. We know each other. There's a lot of inside jokes from this show to Game Time Decision to Total Chaos. We have our inside jokes, the Earl Sports Bets, Higgs and his No Drama Llama. We support each other. We lift each other up, and it's cool to be part of the team,
Yeah,
Drop
we got some great handicappers at that site, and I would highly encourage, I'm not out here just to talk about myself. I'm honored to be on a site with a lot of good handicappers. You talk about reading lines. Nobody does it better than Chip Chirimbus. So I can tell you that right now. He might not be a guy who's going to come up with all the statistics and trends and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of looking at an opening line, seeing movement, and reading what again, thinking like a bookmaker. I don't think anybody does it better than him in that regard.
Chip is the man. During when I first started Total Chaos on Saturdays, they would have to do the entire Sunday card for NFL. That was one whole Total Chaos. And Chip went on a run. I mean, he was undefeated for, I think, 6 weeks.
And he doesn't even bet totals.
I know. That's what he always says. He's like, I'm not really a totals guy.
He doesn't even give them out.
Should be.
And I always, I said, Chip, what are you doing? I mean, if there's 14 games on an NFL card on a Sunday, you're leaving 14 possible winners on the table. Because anytime you give me 28 options in comparison to 14, any professional guy who does it on a daily basis likes more options. Yeah. It opens up the board for you a little more, and it gives you a better chance of winning. So, we all, like he says all the time to me, Ross, there's two ways to skin a cat. So.
Why? Who's skinning cats? Why do we need to skin a cat anyway?
It's just a metaphor, Ellie. It's a metaphor.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. Although I will say, because we're talking about Total Chaos runs, Sean Higgs started baseball in April and didn't lose until the first week of July. That's how long he went on a baseball.
That's not true.
Run.
I beat him in June. So
not on baseball.
Oh, in baseball. What did I do?
On the baseball.
I and corrected Sean. Yeah. My apologies, buddy. He's I've known.
But you did beat him in the 5 sports or the 5 games, 3 sports. You beat him.
Yeah, but he's a great handicapper, Sean. I've known him for a long time. He's been around for a while. Good family man, solid handicapper, solid person.
I just met him in person in Houston. I was just in Houston where he lives now. And we went out to have dinner at this restaurant called the Aquarium in downtown Houston. And like 4 days ago, a guy walked into the aquarium with a gun and shot 2 people. It was like,
it's not funny,
like you put us in a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Like,
it's too bad that you didn't try to meet me when I was in Las Vegas. Because
you're going to bring that up. You're going to bring that up, are you?
The rat of a woman.
I was all dressed up. I had my hair curled, my heels on.
Yeah. You tell me what I want to hear. It makes me feel good, Ellie. Tell me what I want to hear.
Nothing, I say.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. You would love to challenge Chip in NFL Total Chaos. Sure, your ass would be handed to you, but it would be good to compete against a great. Yeah, Higgs and the llama are royalty. That's true. Don't forget the piggy picture. I'm on the AL. I took the AL, but it's like I said, that's just he has his cash cow too. Higgs has a cash cow too.
Yeah, by the way, for that gentleman who just says I'll have my ass handed to me, I'm number 6 in the country in the NBA right now for the entire season. number 11 in Major League Baseball. Again, for those of you who aspire to be handicappers out there, and I hope you don't mind me adding this in, Ellie,
Oh,
I would highly encourage, if you want to be a handicapper, just don't come right out of a chute with the website and think that people are going to flock to see you, because it's going to be very discouraging for you. And more guys quit after a couple months in this business than I choose to talk about. But if you want to be an aspiring handicapper, go somewhere where you get monitored independently, okay? And show your wares. I mean, if you're a top 10 guy, this is something you can hang your hat on. You know, I get tired of guys coming up and they say, yeah, I'm 64-20. Okay, well, where are you monitored? Because because I said so.com? No, you have to have some place you go. So again, Sports Capping monitors me. Craig does a great job on his site as well.
yeah.
The only thing when it comes to me is I didn't start until the middle of April at Picks and Parleys. So at Sports Capping, I'm monitored there. I'm monitored at other spots, and I don't mean to bring a competitor up, but my point being is when you start to talk about long term and how you do long term, that's what it's all about. And if you're going to brag about your record, make sure you're being monitored by an independent source.
That's a big reason why I started, we call it the Handicappiton. And it's because on the Morning Wood show, it's always, everyone wants to come in with their ego and their record and their whatever. So it was just a way for me to monitor them and kind of let them put their money where their mouth is. And, sometimes we have a good week, sometimes you have a bad week. That's cool. But this is going over 4 weeks. I mean, the winner right now, he's 25-10-1. So that's 26 picks that they've given me at this point. They've still got time to go. So that's, I want to give them the opportunity to really kind of not just show me or us, but show themselves how good they are. If you're not tracking yourself, you should be tracking yourself.
Yeah. I could tell you when I first started out in getting contests, credible contests, where sometimes you have to reach in your pocket to enter. By the way, I need to talk to you about the Las Vegas competition coming up in the NFL. Yeah. But anyway, to make a long story short, back in 2003, I was invited by Mark Lawrence, who's a well-known handicapper, into his Playbook Invitational contest. There was 50 other guys. I was 2 years into my career at that time, publicly anyway. And I won the contest, and really things catapulted from there. So that's where I'm going with this, Ellie. Between being monitored, getting in contests, it's just not get on and invest money into a website and think things are going to take off. And the word professional is used a lot too loosely these days. Professionals are guys that do it on a daily basis and show they could win long term. Okay, because you won the last 2 weeks. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have another job? That's how you know if you're a professional or not. Because when I was a professional poker player, I did not have another job. That was how I made my money. Now I'm not a professional handicapper. I'm a professional host, and I like to handicap, and I'm good at that. But that's not like I'm not a professional handicapper, and I'm very honest with them about that. But you are. So if you want to start calling yourself a professional, but then you go to your 9 to 5, you're not a professional yet. It's not it. Yeah. So Breaking Vegas Sports wanted to know where would a place be that he could get monitored like that? He's 36-15-2 on video picks, but of course that's not being tracked.
Yeah. I would suggest just look at the Oklahoma Sports Monitor. I don't know if that's still out there. Maybe try to get yourself on a website with other fellow handicappers. Where they do track your picks every day, anywhere where you're not in charge of grading plays yourself. Okay. Right. So look up sports monitors online. They're not as prevalent as they used to be. Or like I said, try to get yourself on a smaller site. And at the end of the day, as long as whoever is grading the plays, you have no direct affiliation with, and they're not only grading your plays, they're grading several other plays. You don't want to be on a monitoring site where there's 8 guys. You finish first. There's no credibility to that. So that would be my suggestion.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, that's just it. There are a lot of people out there that want to get into the business, and it's good to have a grown up here that we can ask those questions to. What are the right
Ah,
routes to take?
I'm not a grown up. I'm not a grown up. I'm just old, but with a young mind. So anyway.
No, no, no. We just mean you're not a degenerate like us. um, all right. Well, thank you so much. That was awesome. I loved that. People at home, Picks and Parlay View crew, give us that thumbs up. Let Craig know that we want Ross back again. And I'll definitely have you on again next week as we start rolling through baseball season. And that gives you guys, the Morning Woodies, time to think of more questions that you would like answered. We're almost adulting. Exactly. Oh, guys, almost adulting is canceled for tonight, by the way. And then Morning Wood will not be on, will resume on Friday. We're taking an all-star break. So Morning Wood will not be back until Friday because we don't have anything to bet on. So
Detroit Lenny, he looks like Zed Eminem's brother there with the hoodie on. From Detroit, you know what I mean? Anyway.
I have the best tracker. My lady knows if I'm hitting or not. We want more Ross times. Yes, we do.
Thank you,
yes.
Pedro.
All right, Ross, thank you so much for your time. Guys, don't forget, you can find Ross Benjamin and his premium picks over at picksandparlays.net and use the promo code FINALS. It saves you 20% off of the entire site and off of all of his premium picks. Let me just Oh, now we gotta your take on parlays. He does not. I've told them this a million times. They always want to disagree, and I'm not talking about you exactly, Daniel, but they want to disagree with me when I say don't take parlays, and they're like, but I hit 4 out of this, and but I hit this, and it's like, guys, my job is to work with 25 of the best handicappers in the nation, okay? And none of them parlay. So if they are professionals and they make a living out of making money on bets, wouldn't they be good enough to stick these two together and make a little extra dough out of it? Yeah. Why don't you think they do that? Ross, why don't you do that?
Well, because basically, I mean, they're trying to find a cheap investment to maximize their investment. You know what I mean? So it's a lot easier for them to put up $20 to make 52 than to bet 55 to win 50 on each game, or 28 to win 25 on each game. So again, folks, you know, yeah, it's coming from me. I've been doing this a long time. It's hard to win one game. And when I say that, it doesn't mean that I've lost in my career. Obviously, I'd be doing something else by now. But it's very difficult to win one game, let alone two. And then when you start getting to 3 and 4 teamers, sometimes you hit one of those and it's fool's gold. And that's just what they want you to do. Yep. They want you to believe this is easy, you know, and you continue to bet those. You're going to lose money over the long haul. Anybody who says they've been betting parlays on a daily basis for years and are up money, look at me. You're a liar, okay? Because you don't make money betting parlays. It's just not going to happen. I mean, that, like I said, Ellie, the 3 and 4 game parlays. Think of it this way: the bookmakers only can go 1 and 3 against you on a parlay and win money. Mm-hmm. Does that seem logical to bet parlays when you look at it from that perspective?
I'd rather just bet plus money.
I hope your answer is no. You know?
Yeah, no. I would rather just bet at plus money. You know, that was always my thing, was I could get one right and one wrong and still make money if they're both plus money bets. And so when I got into this, that was just what my focus always was. And, you know, Craig Trapp said something to me in the beginning, and I passed this on to Detroit Lenny. In the beginning, when I first started Morningwood, it was just supposed to be like my own free picks on college basketball. And I was so nervous. And Craig goes, if you think it's that hard to pick winners, then just try to pick 3 losers. You know, it's the same. It's just as hard to pick a loser as it is to pick a winner when you think of it that way, you know?
Hey, we could talk about our relationships in that regard too.
That's just it. Let me tap into one of my ex-husbands real quick. William Brooks wanted to know, how do you feel about live betting?
Yeah, I'm not a proponent of it, William. I think what live betting is very creative and innovative and smart idea by the sports books, but they're not good for sports bettors, because what they try to do is capitalize on your emotion. And I'll give you an example. You're losing the game. You have the Philadelphia Eagles +7. They're losing 35-14 at the half. They look terrible. So now you start betting live to try to get the money back on the bet you made, because it hinges on being impulsive. And that's where the sports book gets you. As soon as you lose patience and lose discipline, which I believe live betting is, that's where your bankroll is going to diminish in a hurry. So that's my opinion. Again, I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll chime in and say, I do terrific live betting. Well, God bless you, but it's not for me.
I do well live betting when I have a plan. When I say I'm going to take this dog now because I think they get off to an early lead, and then I could get onto this, and then if this total's here, if when I have a game plan and I'm watching the game, I do well. But when I'm sitting around and once that alcohol starts flowing, once you're drinking your beer, then you think you know hot damn everything. So I used to be a really big in player, and now I'm just kind of like I'm more mellow about it. I have my moments.
Well, I mean, what you're describing, like you say, with a plan, it's not impulsive. You know what I mean? You're really saying, well, this happens, this is what I'm going to do, rather than, oh man, I got to try to get my money back. And they put out a live betting scenario for you, and you just jump at it and make a decision within 2 seconds without having any thought process behind it. Does that make sense? Especially when you get into, is the next pitch going to be a strike or a ball? Come on, man.
Detroit Letty says his record with live betting depends on his Crown Royal intake. That's pretty much how I feel about it.
There you go.
And then Lenny said, I rarely do a parlay anymore because Allie yells at me. I totally do.
You listen to her. She's a smart lady, Detroit Lenny.
Better listen. In Breaking Vegas, you have to pick your spots live just like you do pregame. Yeah, if you're doing it live, you really do want kind of a...
Exactly. That's not impulsive, though. You know what I mean? There's a fine line between being impulsive and having the thought process going in.
Yeah, because then at least you're still handicapping.
Yes, exactly.
Remember, there's a big difference between being a handicapper and being a gambler. People will come in the chat and be like, oh, I'm tired of gambling. Like, you should be. Why don't you try handicapping? Give that a shot,
Or if you don't have the time to do so, there's 25 guys on Picks and Parleys that do have the time to do it and do it very well. So,
and there's your promo code right there to save 20% off the entire site, including Ross Benjamin's premium plays. Live lines are often very inflated and, like Ross said, geared towards impulses. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are going to close it on down. I will see you guys back again on Friday for Morning Wood. We will pick up the last Woody standing again, pick up the Handicapping again. So you guys enjoy your All-Star break. I'm going to go enjoy mine. Ross Benjamin, thank you so much for coming on the show. That was great. Thank you.
I had a ball, Ellie, and I look forward to doing it again. And thank you so much for having me, dear.
No problem. Anytime. Bye, guys.